Record. Hi. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I was set up outside with some nice natural light, but then it started raining, so I had to kind of
Yeah.
come in and duck
Yeah.
out my office.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, no problem. It's nice to catch up.
Yeah, for sure. How have you been during all this?
I would say the first month was pretty hard.
Hmm.
It was like every day for about a month, I was just finding out, oh, this is postponed. Okay, it's finally canceled. Got to
Yeah.
rework my whole schedule. And by the end of it, I mean, not all of my contracts are canceled. I still have a few things that I'm working on and doing.
Hmm.
Um, but about, I don't know, two-thirds, I probably lost 10 contracts and
Uh,
probably over like $100,000 for like
ooh.
me and my company and the artists that I normally pay out every year and the support staff that helps with all my projects. And, there was a part where I felt pretty, I don't know, like I was struggling because I felt like I'd failed, but then it's like out of my hands. All the things would have happened had, this virus not happened. But at the same time, it was just difficult processing it because so much I feel like of my identity comes through my work and
Right.
through these projects. It's very integrated, and but it's kind of smoothed over, and I've kind of gotten reoriented. I was able to get on unemployment from Meow Wolf. Had qualified for it when I got laid off, but then I hadn't done it just because at the time I was working and I had stuff going on and I didn't qualify. And so
For
when
sure.
it kind of slowed down, I was like, well, shoot, I'm going to see if I qualify. And so it's enough to cover my bills. And I've just been taking the time to really do a lot of back end work for my business and actually start working on the next versions, which is this big website platform build that I've been dreaming about for years now. So it's kind of nice to have some extra time to be able to put into that, because who knows
Totally.
if it would have even ever happened otherwise, because my projects tend to keep me like in over my eyeballs with work. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of us are using this time to catch up or do something a little different or learn a new skill or something. Uh, it's kind of like a weird blessing in disguise in some ways. Definitely hard to deal with, but yeah. So I guess let's catch people up to how did you get? I mean, maybe start at the beginning. How did you get involved with the arts, and what are you doing now? And you mentioned your website, and I saw you made a post about that the other day too. So I wanted to talk about that, and I'm sure you got a lot to say about it. So yeah, just talk about that a little bit if you want to.
well, I'm originally from Arkansas, and I grew up in a super small town, less than 3,000 people.
Oh
Went to
wow.
public school, and I have to really equate a lot of, why my interest in kind of art and culture and music to that, because for me, I was just so devoid of culture growing up, which granted my parents, thank God, they're really intelligent, cool people and were very progressive. And it was weird. They had this kind of like network of cool artists that they knew. And so we had this kind of like bubble of friends and people in this otherwise very like Christian, Republican, conservative community.
Right.
And I grew up around like glass blowers and a potter. Like I have a whole pottery set.
Oh sweet.
My one of my good mom's good friends. And so, but I feel like this weird juxtaposition of being so culturally devoid, but knowing that there was more out there. And then like I grew up, and I think we got our first computer when I was in kindergarten. And
Nice.
but it just like is slow. Like I grew up with the internet, not like with it, but
Right.
like as the internet grew up, I grew up. And so
Totally.
I was just always curious about culture. And so I was figuring out how to download music on LimeWire and like, you know, figure out how to like find cool like style and scene girls on MySpace and like figure out like, you know, what was cool. And I was just always like trying to find stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I followed a bunch of blogs, and I got like really interested in doing podcasts. Actually, like I did a podcast in college,
Oh,
and
nice.
I
What'd
was
you call it? What was it called?
God, I would look. I don't even know. They called me Indie Annie Jones, though. But we're talking. This was like 2008, so it was like.
Right.
So I don't even know what we. Wow, that'd be funny to go back and listen to some of them, though.
Yeah. Do you have access to any of them?
I could hit up the guy. We're still friends on Facebook. He just
Nice.
randomly found me, and like we've never even met. And we did this podcast about music, and we'd review albums and stuff. But
That's super cool. That was like in the beginning of podcasts and stuff
oh
too.
yeah, it was weird. And I don't know. So I started throwing these parties during college. I met this really cool chick who originally started throwing. Her name was Candace.
Mm-hmm.
And she was getting the colleges to like donate art supplies and stuff. So they would have like all these canvases and easels and paint supplies, and they'd take that white kind of butcher paper type stuff and just cover the walls. And it was like $5 to get in, but you could keep the canvas. And
That's cool.
it slowly like morphed into these like she kind of took a step back because she had a kid, and so I was kind of helping manage them, and we would get like, you know, local DJs and electronic music. And then I went to Wakarusa, which was in Arkansas.
Nice.
um,
What year did you go to that?
I want to say my first year was maybe 2009 or 10, but I met Michael Garfield and Ray Vina there.
Yeah, I was at the one in 2010. That's the first time I ever sold any art ever.
Oh, cool. How synchronistic. That's so
Yeah. Yeah, that place is pretty badass actually. Like the nature and the just kind of vibes of the land there, I guess.
It's gorgeous. And
Yeah.
like the waterfall there on that site.
Yeah.
You know, and like I was connected with a bunch of people who were throwing like raves in a lot of the similar areas out and about, like in Arkansas, and was just trying to like plug in, see like what else was out there. And but I met at Wakarusa. That was really cool. I met Ray and Michael, and I ended up getting it's such a longer story.
Yeah.
But I got Michael to come to one of my art parties, which was really cool. So that was kind of how I started like, okay, cool. Like, what does it look like to get bigger name artists to parties and like network and connect with people? And like, so I was starting to like, you know, actually start booking people. And Michael, it was really funny. Like my mom was engaged to Jeff Goldblum and like had this whole
Really
thing. And he was like trying to like win her back. She's such a strange woman, and love her, but oh, she's wild. And he was like, I want to buy you a graduation present. And so he actually bought me my first original painting, which was a Michael Garfield.
Oh, nice. Wait,
Yeah.
So Jeff Goldblum paid for a Michael Garfield and gave it to you?
Yes.
That's a hell of a fucking story. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And so that really kickstarted my collection, and
yeah,
you know, allowed me to have more access to Michael when I didn't really know what I was doing. And so he was like, who is this chick?
Yeah.
You know, ended up coming to one of my parties, and that like helped me kind of, and he really, I feel like took me under his wing a little bit. Like he really helped, like he turned me on to like Andrew Jones and Matt and just so, and like, he was like, you need to come to Sonic Bloom. And so after Wakarusa in 2011, I moved to Colorado, and I was just sleeping in my car for a couple of weeks and like sleeping on people's couches. But then because I was like, well, I'm going to go to Sonic Bloom. That's going to be a week. So might as well get a house after that. So I always say Sonic Bloom is like my anniversary of being in Colorado, and so
Yeah.
that was 2011, like a month after I graduated college.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like, shouts Michael because
Yeah.
I feel like he's kind of like that dude who for a while at least seemed like he was taking a lot of people under his wing. I met him at Wakarusa too, and he had something nice to say about my artwork after, because I wasn't painting then, but I was like making little ink drawings, and I showed it to him because I was like, oh, this guy's a painter, and I ran into him, and we talked for a little bit. I feel like he's kind of like the gatekeeper, or was at least for a lot of live painters. So
I feel
it's
like
just,
gatekeeper's interesting. Michael's always been so inclusive and like,
and that's kind of what I mean, more like an usher.
yeah, there you go. That's a good
Yeah,
word.
like welcome in, like come
Yeah.
on in.
Yeah. Oh, he's great. I mean, I really have a lot to, you know, thank him for because, we went to Burning Man together that year. We went to Root Wire.
Nice.
We probably did other stuff. I can't remember. And he just like, I was kind of like, I'd pay for the gas or like pay for the hotel room and different stuff. Just, and I'd drive my car just because I was like, I want to experience this stuff. I don't want to go by myself. This guy knows what he's doing. And like,
Right.
and so it was just kind of cool. He was like my big brother in some ways of like, I'll take you and like introduce you to all these people. And so I kind of like, I feel like I was kind of like not sponsoring him, but I was like, taking care of a lot of things to kind of like gain access to like, the inner circle of these,
Right. You were kind
conversations.
of like you're kind of like paying in or something, like paying.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like, when you're first starting out on a creative path or whatever, you got to kind of pay dues, so to speak, and like, bust your ass to make things happen.
It was totally worth it. I
Oh yeah.
mean, it
Oh yeah.
was invaluable experiences and connections that I made through, hanging out with him and him being able to like introduce me to people and just, you know, um, in 2011, he introduced me to Jen Ingram at Burning
Nice.
Man. And that really set the stage of like, wow, this is really interesting. And how do
Yeah.
I do this? And it took me a few years to really kind of get there because it's been a slow
Totally.
process. I mean, I started with the art parties in Arkansas, but then moved out here and I kind of struggled for my first year or two. I feel like I was having a hard time like finding community and figuring myself out. And I was just doing random work at the time. And then I met Boris Cartman, who used to do visuals for Base Nectar and ran a company called Illuminated Dimensions at the time.
Nice.
Or wait, no. What was it called at the time? Oh shit, I can't remember. He had a different name for his company. It's called Illuminated Dimensions now. But dang it, that's gonna bug me. But anyway, we dated for like a year and he taught me particle illusion and got me going because like before I'd like at the art parties I would set up these funky like projection installations where it was like overhead and slide projectors and random like stuff. I had this like Brian Eno DVD. I'd like layer and like do all this stuff, right? And
Right.
but I was really into like Photoshop and just digital art. But like at that time, I had like a really janky computer and didn't. I don't know. I hadn't really figured out how to start even teaching myself that stuff yet, and just always had fun with it. I probably could have even taken some classes at Hendrix, but I didn't even know like that much about like the feasibility of it or what I wanted to do.
Right.
And but then when I saw Android's Phaedra project, I was like, oh, this is so cool. And wanted to learn that software, which is particle illusion. And so Boris got me set up with that. And I started doing content development for his company and did a bunch of stuff at like Red Rocks, and we did some AEG festivals, went down to Envision, and then that was when Rise started. We were actually down at Envision, and I got a call from Tiero, or well, Boris got the call from Tiero and was like, we're going to throw a festival. We don't know what it's called yet. Will you bring some art? And Boris was like, hell yeah. And so we did. But you know, we ended up breaking up like right before Rise, which was pretty difficult. He's a really intense person. He's really, really smart. He's Russian, which is just kind of a cultural thing. They're just very intense people. And I'm like buttery, like, you know, Southern girl. So
Yeah.
it's just like a lot for me.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we broke up, and I went on to continue doing the work at Arise, because it wasn't really his like his thing. Like he enjoyed doing like the visuals and setting up all the tech aspects, but
Right.
like the gallery and installations and stuff was like, I finally like was like, yes, I get to do the thing that I've been wanting to do. And you know, that just really snowballed. To where like in I want to say 14 or 15, then Sonic Bloom asked me to do stuff. And then then I started working with Dave at Euphonic Conceptions and doing stuff at like Red Rocks and the Fillmore and Cervantes sometimes, and Jim and Jam and Wave Spell. And now it's just turned into a whole thing where like, you know, I mean, I was set up this year. I had like 14 contracts for this year set up, and I was so excited because I had surpassed my goal of having a contract for each month.
Right. Yeah.
It was like one a month had been my goal forever, and I was like, yes.
Yeah, dude.
But yeah.
That, you know, like, I guess kind of the question that arises from that is, what are some challenges that you have kind of like herding all these cats and like, you know, dealing with tons of applications and artists and, you know, writing grants or what have you? Like, what's the hardest part of it? What's the most rewarding part of it for you?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked what's most rewarding too, because I
Yeah.
hate to just dwell on the negative, because it's hard work.
Right.
You know, I think the hardest thing is having to say no to people. Like we get like 300 plus applications to these festivals. And it just breaks my heart. I mean, I have to say no to people that like I think are just wonderful, incredible people, but they only allow me to like accept or give tickets to, you know, 25 people normally. And that hurts. And it hurts because I don't think people realize how difficult that is for me. And then, you know, they'll make posts on Facebook taking it personally and saying that like, I don't know. I've had to deal with a lot of the social media stuff. And I think at this point I have distanced myself enough to where I'm like, you know, it's okay. Like, I'm not going to make everyone happy. And if they don't understand, then, you know, I'm not going to like continue to just try and defend myself all the time. Like, it's exhausting.
Yeah, totally.
I think that's probably the hardest part. I wish that I had the ability to do more for more people, and the limited resources is always difficult too, because then even if I do accept artists, then a lot of times those artists are even upset because they're like, why don't I have, you know, an all access pass, or you know, I want catering and all this stuff. And it's like, you know, I just can't do that. And, you know, we're really trying to make this succeed. And if we kind of cut corners for a few years, maybe we'll make money and then we can have a bigger art budget. But like, this is where we're at. And, it's, you know, those kind of things are tough because I feel like people think that I'm the one making those decisions.
Right.
And,
like you're kind of stuck in the middle between the people that you're serving and then the people you work for, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, so I have to kind of take the brunt of it a lot. And so that's tough. But I would say the most rewarding part, though, is just getting to, like, at the end of the festivals, getting to pay everyone.
Yeah.
I really love, like, and I feel like the fun camaraderie that happens where people are like, oh, who sold the most in the gallery this weekend,
Yeah.
like, and it kind of, that's fun. And just bringing all these people together from all over the United States. Like,
Hmm.
I got Nick Stumbles coming in from Austin, Texas, and he brings in a lot of our Arkansas homies from like his Flux festivals that are like
Hmm.
really old friends of mine. Like my friend Jackson comes out and we went to college together, but he
Hmm.
helps Nick. And it's just a really, like, I love, it feels like a family reunion every
Right.
time. And like, I really miss that. And but that's my favorite, like, just all the people coming together, and then just being able to pay people and for their art, because I think that that's
Right.
like the special thing, like, that's very validating.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I remember the first time I got paid at a festival, it was like kind of mind blowing in a way, like having my work hang in a gallery and then at the end of the weekend, settling up. It's definitely like a high point. And, a lot of us who go to festivals don't always necessarily, we're a lot of us are kind of like young to the game, to the art game, I guess. And so providing that space where we can kind of like get used to the gallery setting and talking to people and networking with people, it's super valuable. Um, a question I was thinking of while you were talking just now. So a lot of festivals are having, like you said, like 20, 25 artists. Um, are you, as a curator, are you trying to get the most the most amount of like quantity of people in there, or do they give you kind of like this is the number of artists we want? Because I was thinking about like, okay, sometimes we don't have a budget to give people meals or like VIP camping or whatever. So is it more of a question of like the festival asking to have like 20, 25 artists, or I guess
Yeah.
what's the sweet spot of a number of artists?
Well, I'm probably going to get myself in trouble answering this, but um, the the festival usually says this is the amount of tickets that
Hmm.
we're allotting you.
Okay.
And so then I have to, but sometimes they do say like, we want this many live painters, and it's a logistics thing sometimes, because it's like how much power we can distribute, where they're going to set up, how much
Totally.
space they're going to take up,
Hmm.
all that kind of stuff. So it's usually like, you know, it's both like, this is how much I've been allotted, but it's also like a logistics thing. But I tend to, because for a lot of events, I do live painters and installations. So one way
Hmm.
I've been able to get more artists in is by expanding and doing murals.
Right.
And so that doesn't necessarily cut into the live painter, budget of tickets. I can get people in additionally as muralist and put
Right.
that under installations. So and not, that wouldn't get me in trouble. Because that's been a really cool aspect to add on. And
Hmm.
I think it's been really cool to see people, figure out how to work on a larger scale, or to be able to have artists that work, already do murals and larger scale work to present so people can see that process. So that's like one way I've been trying to kind of get more people in. I also get artists in to help on the different teams, because I have like
Right.
an artist, like the check-in team that like gets you your credentials. Then I have the sales team in the gallery. I usually have a build team that builds the mural walls and like the gallery walls and paints, like
Hmm.
buffs everything. So, I'll get artists in that way. I mean, really most of the people that help out and pitch in are artists in some way or another.
Right.
um, and I'm always trying to figure out how to like get people in, because it's it's always just a limit of tickets.
Yeah.
And, and I'm always trying to get more from events and advocate for more. And, Sonic Bloom's actually been one of the really cool events I've worked with. And I think it's because Jamie, the owner, is an artist
Right.
himself, so he gets it. And he
Right.
really listens to people. Like, I remember, I think it was like maybe Michael Devine and Michael Garfield and a few
Mm-hmm.
others that have like wrote these really long things about like paying live painters and this like
Mm-hmm.
kind of complicated conversation that's come up over the years. And Jamie looks at that stuff and reads it and is like, okay, what can we do? And normally for Sonic Bloom, if you're an official live painter, you at least get like $100,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty
Right.
cool. And it helps. I mean, it's not much, but it does add up. I mean, when you add that up, it's like $2,500. It's like, that's a
Right.
good chunk of money. So
Right.
it's hard when you are working in big numbers to
Right.
be able to give stipends. And a lot of people are like, why don't you pay people? I'm like, do the math. If we paid you, that's like a big chunk of the budget.
Right.
Like,
And that's where like kind of the hustle comes in too, and networking and talking to people who are in the gallery. What advice would you have for an artist on that front in terms of how to kind of like, I guess, cultivate a nice little network for yourself and find collectors? Is there anything that comes to mind?
interesting. It's an interesting question. Well, one thing that I always tell people is to invest in yourself.
Yeah.
You know, if you really are trying to do this full time and to take yourself serious, especially if you're out here in Colorado,
Mm-hmm.
but really anywhere that you live, there's good people, and you can find good people and then do trades. Offer to say like, I'll help you stretch your canvases or do your shipping if you'll teach me figurative drawing, or like do some lessons with me, like I want to learn oils, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
There's really creative ways that you can you know get people to teach you or to get access to learning and skill based just trades and such. But I think that kind of stuff, like reach out to your heroes.
Yeah.
I think, but don't hold your breath. Don't, get upset if they don't respond, but
Mm-hmm.
you'd be surprised. Like when you reach out to people, often we're really, grateful that that people recognize the work that you do or whatever. And so, a lot of people are happy to talk to you and like give you advice. And, if there's a certain, I don't know, there's a lot of like different collectors that have made it into a business, which I think is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that you've got the Crown collection and the Higher collection and all these kinds of people that are doing stuff like that. And I think, don't be afraid to reach out to those people and say, hey, like, what kind of art are you looking for? And like,
Right.
or can you suggest anybody else that, might be interested in collecting my work or have any advice for me? Cause like, like Ryan, who does the Crown collections, a good friend of mine, and he's
Yeah.
he's very humble. I think people get maybe a little intimidated because people look so cool, but
Yeah.
like people are people. Just like reach out and ask questions, be curious, and yeah, just don't be afraid to like put yourself out there, even
Yeah.
just on Facebook. Like just like whatever questions you have or whatever you're trying to think through, like just put it out there. You'd be surprised like what would come back.
Yeah. There's a lot of valuable lessons and information you can get from just sharing what you're going through and just getting feedback from people. I think it's still like, I've been painting for like 9 years now, and it still kind of doesn't baffle me, but I'm still like, wow, it's a lot of other things besides painting. It's
Yeah.
a lot of like applying for, murals or festivals, or I'm getting interested in grants and stuff like this right now.
Yeah, there's been a bunch come up,
Mhm.
so it's it's kind of interesting because like we have this downtime and like all these extra grants, so it's definitely a good time to get good at grant writing.
Yeah. What do you have any advice on grant writing? Is there a trick to it, or do you just
You
have to
know,
practice just like anything else?
well, I just think it's finding things that are a good fit.
Hmm.
So really reading everything, like
Hmm.
really read through what they're asking for, what kind of things you need to qualify for it, and just making sure before you put that energy in that it is a fit.
Hmm.
Um, because you definitely want to hone in on ones that are like a good fit. And one thing I've been noticing a lot with the grants for like small businesses, because I've been applying and like getting a bunch of rejection letters, is that they're really funding businesses right now that are actively pivoting towards frontline work. So,
Hmm.
say like a clothing company that's now doing masks,
Right.
or a bar that's now doing hand sanitizer. So, stuff like that is what's really getting funded. And so it's, and I wouldn't force, like, if that's not what you're doing or what you want to do, like, I wouldn't force it.
Hmm.
Because I think that that's maybe a little disingenuous.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
like, if you want to do that, then great. Like, I'm sure the help is still needed and will continue to be a need. But like, if you're just trying, I don't know, I would just find stuff that's a good fit. And because there's a lot out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, let's switch back a little bit to IRL.
Okay.
When did you start that? Like, what kind of events are you guys doing? I saw something, I didn't get out, I wasn't able to go to Far Out Factory, but that looked super cool. And
Yeah.
the event with Ethereum Denver. Just talk about all that.
Okay. So IRL is actually technically my second LLC I've had. I used to have the Illuminatorium, which was from, I want to say 2014 and 15, that I did with my partner at the time, Jason Burris. And
Hmm.
we hosted like 20 events. And I struggled for a few years to reincorporate my name. It was hard to find a name that really represented what I do.
Hmm.
Um, and so I came up with IRL, and that was 2018, I believe. I came up with the name and got the new LLC, got my logo, been, trying to rebrand and kind of do that. And because for a few years I was just doing stuff as like Annie Stardust. I worked with Soul Purpose for I think a
Hmm.
year or two in between, and was like doing my galleries and stuff as Soul Purpose.
Hmm.
Um, but then yeah, with IRL, yeah, it just keeps growing, which is really nice because as much as I love festivals and I feel like those are like my home base and it's
Hmm.
my, just my foundation. It's my starting point. I have been doing a lot of different types of projects more recently, like Far Out Factory and the Underground Music Showcase. That's with a local company, Two Parts,
Hmm.
which Two Parts, I met Lulu, who's one of their main, I don't know what her title is, but like she's one of the like main people at Two Parts. But she used to book and do she used to work with a Rise Music Festival. So I knew
Hmm.
her through a Rise, but then she started working with Two Parts, and they do a ton of like all sorts of different events. They do a cool event called Truck Stop, which is like a food truck festival. They produce Crush Mural Festival.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
yeah, Far Out Factory. And So they're an event production company, and I've been working with them as kind of their like art director for various projects. And yeah, and then in February I did that ETH Denver project, which was just so cool. I mean, like, you know, especially with my background in digital art, people that aren't familiar, Ethereum is a cryptocurrency on blockchain,
Right.
which blockchain technology and Ethereum in particular has allowed for all these things called dApps, which are developer apps, to
Okay.
happen. And there's been all of these really cool platforms pop up for digital artists. And so it was a really crazy project because a lot, like for probably 2 months, I just figured out how to approach it. And it was a huge like research undertaking to be able to
Hmm.
like figure out like which platform I wanted to use to run the gallery. And like, you know, I just setting that up was a wild process. But um yeah, I've been putting my personal art on Super Rare recently, which is, I definitely recommend any artist, digital or traditional, to check it out. It's a
Super
really
rare.
super rare.
Okay.
It's a
Cool.
really cool, one of the dApps on Ethereum where basically it'll tokenize your work, which essentially makes it a contract that says this is an original. So for digital artists, like especially, it's really
Hmm.
cool because it's a way to say like this is a one of one digital art
Nice.
piece.
Yeah.
But people are buying and selling these digital art pieces and then putting them in virtual galleries. There's one called Crypto Voxels that's really, really cool. And it's just been exploding. Like, especially now, artists are trying to find new ways of making money. So it's cool. I saw Zebler on there, and like Peter Grick, who's a like
Oh,
all-time
cool.
favorite, and
Yeah.
Cullen's on there, and Ethan, some VJ. It's great for VJs. Um,
Nice.
but yeah, and it's really cool because as a digital artist, like I've never sold my digital art other than like a few that I've done like for flyers or random stuff. But
Right.
this was really neat because it it's really building a community around that wasn't there before, you know, other than
Right.
maybe like Behance or
Hmm.
like Deviant Art or something. But like I never was on those, and
Hmm.
this is like a whole new thing. So it's bringing up a lot of really interesting conversations about like ownership and collecting work and what it means of like the material nature of art. It's very philosophic. The nerds are definitely having a field day with this. There's another one I definitely recommend checking out. Like the more I learn about it, the more it like breaks my brain.
Hmm.
Called Async.
How you
And
spell that?
yeah, and it's
Oh, how do you
basically,
spell that? Sorry.
oh, ASYNC, I believe.
Okay, cool.
Like
That's
in sync, but
right,
async, you know.
right, right.
Yeah. But it's like programmable art, which is really, really cool. Like basically like the artist will say, you know, if you buy this piece, like you'll have these different, like you'll be able to unlock these different things. So, you know, then the collector, the person who owns the piece, then has the ability to change it, right?
Oh, okay. So it's kind of like open source art in a way.
Yeah, it's programmable art is what they call it.
Okay.
But then, like, for instance, they curated 12 artists that did the rendition of The Last Supper.
Hmm.
So each artist did one of the figures for The Last Supper, and each one of those had their own programmable features and could be bought independently. So it's
Oh,
also
wow.
talking about fractional ownership, which is
Yeah.
really cool. And so like you can own a piece of this art, but then also have the ability to augment this art. And it's like this like living thing now.
Yeah. That's super awesome. So the super rare, does it have like a virtual reality aspect to it then? Can you put on goggles and walk through the galleries, and zoom in on the paintings and stuff like that?
Yeah, so crypto voxels is that main platform. Some people are
Hmm.
starting to set stuff up in Decentraland is another one. I think it's still in beta, so it's not like you have to kind of like go through a process to get into it right now. But crypto voxels is really cool. And what I like about crypto voxels is that you can click on the pieces and then it will take you to like the the platform that it's hosted on, and you can bid on it or purchase it or just see the sales history, right, of
Awesome.
ownership. And it's really cool that way, where I feel like other platforms, like people have been doing stuff in VR chat
Yeah.
and other, I'm trying to think what other ones I've seen pop up recently, but I think it's mostly VR chat. And I just feel like their platform's still a little lacking with those kind of functions of being able to like click through and like see the sales history. But the bad thing about crypto voxels and Decentraland is all cryptocurrency. And so
So you can't use whatever US dollars or whatever. Okay.
yeah, I mean, you would have to set up a wallet and then be able to like bid and buy the pieces in cryptocurrency. And so I think that that's why it's not super attractive to like your average user.
Hmm.
But, I I think it's way cooler because it's on blockchain and it is cryptocurrency. That's why those features and functions work of like the sales history, because it's basically automating and updating the contract as part of the technology, right?
Right. It's part of the
So
blockchain. Is
yeah,
that what I'm understanding?
yeah.
Cool. And it also
So like the
sounds,
double-edged sword.
yeah. I don't know though. Like, I think if you don't have a little bit invested in cryptocurrency, like, what are you even doing right now?
Yeah, seriously.
I
I,
mean,
I
it
think
doesn't have
all
to be a lot, but you never know.
Well,
Um,
and what's kind of cool as an artist too is like if you get your art on these platforms, then you have your wallet set up, you're getting cryptocurrency that way.
right.
And it's kind of a cool way to then be able to go and interact with these other platforms and try things out. Like a lot of times now I'm like bidding on my friend's artwork to kind of help them along of like getting some hype going on when they, release a new piece, or
Hmm.
going and playing around in these platforms and buying avatar stuff. It's like, it's kind of fun. And that's a cool way to get cryptocurrency without having to put your own money in.
Totally. Yeah. I was having trouble this, let's see, I guess it was like last year at this point, but I sold a painting to someone in Australia, and like getting bank transfers from his bank to my bank was becoming a huge pain in the ass. So I was just like, just send me Ethereum and I'll just, I can cash it out that way. And it worked immediately. Like, I mean, he was like, okay, I sent it. And I looked at, my phone, and a little notification popped up. It's like, you have, this many Ethereum now. And yeah, I don't know. I think that as an artist, it's a good thing to have if you're possibly selling internationally. We're all on the internet, right? Uh, so our posts are being potentially blasted out all over the world. So I think it's I don't know, just my 2 cents on having your own, a little bit of crypto or a wallet or something opened up.
Well, what I found just from doing the gallery at East Denver was just that it's such a beautiful community. Like the
Hmm.
values of that community are so badass. And like there's so many of those platforms. Like I mentioned Super Rare and Async, but there's probably like a dozen different platforms. And I remember like at the event, they had this really cool like maker space that my friend Jessica Angel set up, and
Hmm.
it felt like this freaking cool like cyberpunk club. And they had like an arcade with all these like vintage Japanese games. Anyway, everyone was hanging out up there till like 4 a.m. And I was talking to this guy who had started his own platform. I think it's called First Edition.
Hmm.
And I was talking to him and he was like, yeah, I'm like a New York investment guy, like, stock market stuff. And I'm like super finance, right? And he's like, but I really am passionate about helping artists succeed. And so I built this platform, and I was just like, that blows my mind. Like, that's so cool that someone that has that, level of, I don't know what you'd say, but I just keep being blown away by how cool the community is and how supportive. And so I've been really into it, and it's a bit of a learning curve at first, but if anybody is interested in getting your art on any blockchain platforms, I'm happy to help.
Mm-hmm.
Like be there for you as you're kind of figuring things out. I've had to learn a lot of things the hard way, so I can help you not make mistakes.
That's always invaluable. Like,
Yeah.
just that's kind of what if anyone ever asks me for advice, I'm just like, don't do this, and this. It's like kind of like a inverse advice, I guess. Um, let's see. Oh yeah, so we were talking about IRL.
Yeah.
What other events? I guess if you can talk about it, what were you contracted for this year? You said you had 14 events.
Totally. Well, one thing that I'm really excited about that I still have happening is in July, I'm going to do a big installation down at the Dairy Block.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so a personal installation that I'll design and install. Um,
What does that look
and
like?
Oh, it's they wanted a 4th of July piece, which honestly was a bit challenging for me at first. I wasn't feeling extremely patriotic when they
Hmm.
asked me to do it. So it took me a while to kind of reflect on it, and I decided to go in a direction. I'm naming it Interdependence, and it's a
Awesome.
deconstructed American flag where it's like real angular and layered pieces of fabric that are white, like it'll be like dyed fabric in
Hmm.
blues and reds, and kind of create a gradient effect. And the idea is kind of like, how do we deconstruct this idea of patriotism, this idea of like being an American, and really make it what we want it to be,
Hmm.
something beautiful, something that we can see ourselves in. And so there's a collaborative aspect. We're going to do a social media campaign where we get people to kind of like give us words to live by and write them on it, so they can come and like find their message, see other people's messages. Um, but I'm doing that. I'm still hoping to do some final Fridays at the Dairy Block. I still have the sign up form on my IRL Instagram and my Facebook Instagram in the bio.
Hmm.
There's set for July, August, September, and October. So
Right.
we'll see. I'm hoping we can still make it happen, but those should be fun.
Yeah.
And other than that, I'm just working on my website right now, which is really, really exciting. So from 2017 to 2019, I worked with Meow Wolf.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I did with and for them was oversee and build out their artist database. And so we had this like get involved form on the website where we had like 7,000 artists like reach
Wow.
out to be a part of Meow Wolf. And so I went through that list and developed like with this awesome person, Hand Sales, who still works at Meow Wolf.
Hmm.
Um, but we kind of collaborated on this thing and tracked all of how we were engaging with artists. And so that was informing our decisions of like, oh, well, we already worked with them. Like maybe we'll consider this other person that like has a similar vibe or whatever,
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. And I'd pitched to them that I wanted to make it forward facing, because I was like, I'm getting hit up nonstop with people saying like, can Meow Wolf do a mural on my business, or come to our event and do some installations or whatever. And And their main focus is to build these exhibits. And all the while they do want some opportunities like that, but it had to have been on a certain level for them to really, it be worth them to engage with it.
Right.
So we were losing all these opportunities that we could have distributed. And so, I'd pitched them this idea, and I had lengthy conversations with the lawyer and the former CEO. And I was like, and they were like, well, it's just too much of a liability, to like put ourselves out there. It could, mess with our exhibits.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got it, and they were like, but you should pursue it. They were like, and like, I think that they'll still be supportive once I do launch it, which I think will be a great kind of partnership. But basically the idea is that it's kind of like Artsy, where you can set up your own profile.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really built more similarly to like Airbnb, where,
cool.
as a client, I can go in and say, Denver mural Asian or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it'll come up with like options. And then I'm like, oh, I'm not seeing what I want. You can widen your search, right? Like
Oh,
go up
that's
to
super cool.
500 miles or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it'll be like Airbnb in that way of like being able to search by availability, location, lots of keywords and tags. So
Like
the more,
style.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
like your genre, like your just descriptor words. And basically there's going to be opportunity for people to set up. I have a 1.0 version and a 2.0 version. So the 1.0 version will be that. And the 2.0 version, I'm really excited. I'll be able to expand it to art directors,
Mm-hmm.
performance coordinators, like event managers, to be able to actually offer, or like art collectives.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll be able to say like, this is what I do, and these are my top 20 favorite people that I like either represent or are part of the collective, and I'm the like manager of whatever it is. And so it'll be neat. So like as a client, you're like, oh, this is, you can either book directly to the artist, or you can say like, oh no, I'm going to like book the art director and like have them like manage what I'm wanting. And so it's just going to be a cool interface and hopefully streamline a lot of the like tools and functions and things that I've like through trial and error figured out over the last 10 years of like contracts and insurance and fire safety plans,
Mm-hmm.
and W-9s and all of that, to where, all of that will be in one place.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the main things I'm most excited about is getting an insurance policy to cover all of the artists that are on the site. And so similar to Airbnb, like how they insure the properties that are
Right.
listed on the website. So all of the art will be covered for the duration of its installation.
That's sounds like a great resource. That, like, when you were talking about it, I was like, I mean, so how does someone get involved? How does an artist get involved with you on this?
So I am working on it. So August, it's going to launch.
Okay.
I'm hoping in the meantime, I'm going to curate about 100 artists from across the United States, and try to like really get a good mix of people that are like in different places. Cause I mean, obviously I'm based in Denver, so that's where most of my people are, but gonna curate 100 artists to do kind of a beta test. So really getting feedback from them about like how the website works and what they'd like to see happen, or what they think is like a good tool, bad tool. And then I'm once I launch it, there will be 100 artists on the website. So it'll actually be functioning. You can search and like really get a feel for it. But then it'll be open. Any artist can set up a profile. I will have a feature where basically once you submit your profile, I'll need to approve it.
Hmm.
But really that's just to make sure that you didn't spell anything incorrectly, or that your photos look good, or that you tagged your stuff properly, or that your
Hmm.
prices felt right,
Hmm.
and so I'll either approve it and it'll be fine if you set it up well. And then if not, what I'll do is I'll set up like a consultation, and
Okay.
I'll set up a phone call and I'll say, hey, like your prices seem really expensive for what you're offering. Um, I would recommend doing more tags because that's going to help you come up in searches more, whatever it may be. So, um, definitely at the beginning going to offer a lot of consultation to get people on the website and figure that all out.
That's super exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah. Congratulations on that. That's badass.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, and I'm it's been tough because a lot of people are pretty discouraging right now. It's
Yeah.
expensive, and I'm putting all my extra money into it and basically burning through all of my savings. And it's tough because, we're facing potentially a Great Depression. And I'm like,
Hmm.
am I screwing myself over right now, putting all this money and energy into this thing that I don't know? Like,
Yeah.
but at the same time, like, if I feel like if I don't do it and if I don't try,
Yeah.
then like, what am I doing?
Yeah. You'd have to live with that regret, you know?
Yeah.
And
So I'm
that's,
just going for it and hoping for the best.
yeah. Well, yeah, I am too. So if someone wanted to help you out with that, how could they get in touch with you?
Totally. So I have a few options right now. I have two really amazing people helping me right now.
Hmm.
Eliza Schultz has been helping me with a bunch of like my back end, like just organization. We basically took every spreadsheet from every project I've ever done and made a master artist database. So kind of recreated what I did with Meow Wolf.
Hmm.
And so if you've ever applied or worked with me in the past, you'll already be kind of in the system, so that like once we start sending out newsletters and information about the website, you should already be in the queue to be notified as soon as like stuff is available and ready.
Hmm.
So she's been helping. My friend Rob Gray's been helping. He is awesome. He on Instagram is Rob the Art Museum, and he's so cool. He's this younger man who moved to Denver probably like 2 years ago, but he's been throwing all these really cool art events in the cannabis community.
Oh, nice. That's
So,
awesome.
but like really cool stuff. Like he's really fresh and has a lot of like amazing ideas. So I've actually hired him as my marketing director.
Awesome.
Like, so he's going to be helping kind of promote stuff and come up with like cool ways to get stuff out there. But I do have some opportunities for people to get involved. Like if an artist wanted to help with design elements for marketing, or wanted to be like, I'm going to have an affiliate program later on, so 2.0 version,
Hmm.
where people can, basically get like lower commission or even get equity in the company, depending on their level of engagement. So, I would just say, like, if you're interested, reach out. We can figure some way out of getting you involved. And I definitely am trying to get feedback right now, and it's really tedious because it's a lot of information. I have like a 16-page business plan that I put together, and I've been sending it out to people and being like, can you look this over and give me feedback? And
Yeah.
um, I definitely am going to prioritize the people that are willing to like give me feedback and advice. I definitely need legal help on a number of aspects. So if there's any um, people out there that are good with like legal, like terms and conditions and IP, copyright, trademarks,
Hmm.
that could be a really good resource for me right now and could offer equity yeah, grants. Like we're trying to like we might do a campaign or a fundraiser at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying to just self-fund it and versus getting an investor, because I really like the idea of just working within my means
Right.
and not like convoluting things.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Yeah, if you had an investor, you might have to kind of, I don't know, listen to their ideas and they might want to take precedence over your vision, you know?
yeah, totally. So I've just been self-funding it. So any like I might do a fundraiser at some point, and that would be really cool. Like if artists could, like Rob came up with this idea of like, well, maybe artists could like donate a G clay or a print, and we could do an auction, and then those artists, get their commission waived for the first year or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And so there's cool things that we can do like that. And it's just for me, I've been so bogged down with trying to build it, and like
Mm-hmm.
really like I'm working with these development programmer team down in Austin, Texas, and like trying to like manage Eliza and Rob, and like they're helping like, and I think anybody who wanted to like just help take on a certain aspect, but I think we're just slowly kind of figuring it out and just making it happen. But any feedback would be great. So if anybody wanted to reach out to me at Annie@irlart.com, just holler at me. I can get you over kind of some of the documents we're working through, and just get feedback on stuff.
Cool. Cool. Very cool. So I'm gonna pivot real quick back to festival galleries and curating things like this. What do you look for in an artist, and do you have any advice to someone who might be new to the community, who wants to get into a live festival or a live painting gallery at a festival?
Yeah. I really like to curate really diversely.
Hmm.
And that's really multifaceted. So basically, one, I try to curate like as many women as men as people of color.
Hmm.
Um, and I definitely err on the side of women and people of color, and try to like tilt the scale a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, I also really like to have a wide range of art. So like I'll have anything from like wood burning to like pop art to super psychedelic stuff to super visionary to like real cartoony to like graffiti to I
Yeah.
really love like aspects of all different types of art. But I always just look for people that are original. I think above anything else, like originality really speaks to me.
Hmm.
If I can look at your art and see who you're inspired by, and you're not actively saying that that's who you're inspired by, that bugs me for some reason.
Hmm.
Like if you're studying an artist, like I do it all the time. Like I've done a lot of pieces inspired by David Chong Lee, and a lot of like studying perspective, and I'll write that. Like when I post that work, I'm like, thanks David Chong Lee for inspiring this piece. I'm
Hmm.
trying to like find my voice within this kind of style, and whatever, just to use an example. And
Hey, Kitty.
flying cat.
Yeah.
But I think originality really is important to me. Like when people have really nailed their own style, and it's because I don't know, it's hard for me to accept people when I do have such limited resources, when I can tell that their work is like really inspired by someone else that I could probably approve, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I hear you.
So
Um, yeah. So, any advice for youngsters out there wanting to get into the live painting world? Like, would you recommend volunteering or anything like that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, geez, that's what I did. God, I at the two Wakaroosas I went to, I was on their
Hmm.
green team. I picked
Nice.
up trash after the festival and like got all sorts of crazy ground scores. So yeah, definitely like
Nice.
just be humble more than anything. Like that's gonna get you so far is just like be humble and willing to pitch in. If you come in really hot and like demand a bunch of stuff and like try to like that's a one way of like really just sticking your foot in your mouth. Like
Hmm.
just be like patient with the process
Yeah.
and humble and be willing to like help and I don't know and not to take things personally
Sure.
if they don't go your way, and just keep trying. And if you're really wanting to take it serious, like I said, invest in yourself and like find ways. I mean, there's even tutorials and stuff on YouTube if you don't have access or don't have an ability to like connect with other artists in real life. Um, you can find tutorials and classes online or do Zoom calls like this with people, or like Amanda Sage has been doing this really cool like vision train thing. Like there's a lot of stuff out there like that where
Right.
you can connect with people and start building those friendships and connections with people and be able to get advice from others and get your work seen. And like the vision train's really cool because it's not curated, like you can
Right.
just participate in that, and all of these other artists are now going to be aware of your work, which is really cool. And it's just getting yourself out there is important. And you know like even if you don't get accepted to stuff, if you apply, like people are going to see your work, and that's still a positive thing. Because
Exactly.
like one thing that I noticed year to year is like how people are growing. And if you're growing as an artist, that shows a lot of like, damn, okay, this person's really putting in effort. Like one person I think that it's been, we've had an interesting relationship, but I think that she's like in the last couple of years, her art has just exploded. And it's so easy to say like, holy shit, like look how much you've grown and like you've stuck with it. And Molly Gardner, like I
Yeah.
think like seeing that is so cool. And like you can see the progress, and like that to me says a lot about like, you know, you taking it serious and really trying.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always good to keep in mind that like one little thing can lead to another when you're putting yourself out there. Like you don't know how things are going to kind of like play out. So it's always good to just kind of get your work out there and stay humble, but stay positive too about everything.
Yeah, maybe just be willing to like, you know, try some stuff for free at first, like find a wall if you're trying to do murals, or
Right.
if you're trying to do live painting, like, obviously right now it's difficult, but like there's always opportunities to live paint at Cervantes and the other side. So if you're
Hmm.
ever interested in that, once things do get going, there's like a sign up form. But yeah, hopefully in the future, my website will be a really good resource for people to get themselves out there and to have some context.
Hmm.
That's one of my things that I'm most excited about seeing is the ability for a container to be developed where people are like, oh, okay, like I'm seeing a trend here of how people are pricing their work or pricing, you know, whatever it is they're offering, and being able to search for people and see like who's in your area that's active and doing stuff, and being able to even like as an artist, in the 2.0 version you'll be able to say like, oh, this art director is directing artists that like I really love, or they're managing artists that I really love and like aspire to be like. I'm gonna hire them for an hour consultation. And like, there'll be opportunities like that where you can connect with people that you like want to actively get advice from, and they can help build you a roadmap of, or give advice on like what specifically would be good for you to be considering or looking in, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, cool. Um, yeah, I think we'll probably wrap it up right here. Thanks for keeping all the artists and entrepreneurs and art directors interconnected through what you do. Really
I'm
appreciate you
trying.
being on the podcast too.
I'm trying. Yeah, I appreciate you giving me the time to talk, and I'm glad you reached out. Is there any cool stuff that you're a part of that you're doing that's coming up?
Um, just kind of the podcast, just keeping that rolling. That's that's some work. I've been kind of feeling a little weird about doing it in Zoom and Skype form lately, but I've kind of refocused myself on it. I'm going to be painting my garage studio soon,
Awesome.
so I can practice more murals. And but other than that, just trying to stay present with it all and be a part of this community.
Yeah, very good. Well, it was awesome rattling about my random stuff. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Until next time,
Hey,
peace.
may the peace of the sea be with you.